Hey everyone, it's Rich. Got another video for you. This time some things in the environment page that I think you might find useful. Once the training load picks back up, one of the things that we're going to be teaching coming down the road is gusty crosswinds for takeoffs and landings. So I know there's some confusion about how to set crosswinds and gusts in the sim, so I wanted to cover that. So when we're setting up our winds, normally what we do is we come down to the normal wind button down at the bottom left. We select that, and let's say we're in Jacksonville. We want to go ahead and set in a 10 knot crosswind, so 170 at 10. Execute that. Now let's say it's supposed to be 170 at 10 gusting to 20, so we have to put in an additional 10 knots of gust. Go up to wind temperature gradient, and you can see the wind there at the bottom left, 170 at 10. And up at the top left, you'll see a section that said wind gusts. That is where you enter your gusts. You don't put in what it's gusting to, you put in what the gust factor is. So for 170 at 10 gusting to 20, you'd put in a 10 knot gust, not 20, because that would have it gusting up to 30 knots. When you're done with that part of the training, you want to get rid of the gust and just have it be a normal crosswind. Just go back to wind gust, enter 0, that gets rid of the gust, and you can just enter the winds as normal then. Now, an easy way to enter a crosswind, a button I think we're going to be using once we start teaching this, is the FAA crosswind. When you select that, you'll see you have a choice of crosswind coming from the left or right, and either 20, 25 knots, or 30 knots. These are all based on a 15 knot gust. So for example, L20 is 5 gusting to 20, 25 is 10 gusting to 25. So it's all a 15 knot gust. So you just go ahead and select which direction you want it to come from and how much of a gust you want. So for example, L20, 5 gusting with a 15 knot gust factor, 5 gusting to 20. And you can see it'll show your wind direction and base speed down at the bottom. An important thing to note is when you select the FA crosswind underneath wind gust, it doesn't show up there. But as long as that button is highlighted green, you do have your 15 knot crosswind. We'll go back in there. Let's see, you want to change that. You just go ahead and reset FAA gust. That gets rid of the gust that you had built in and makes all the buttons selectable again. So let's say this time we want to choose R25. That'll give you a 10 knot crosswind with 15 knots of gust. You can see the 10 knot crosswind there, but still again 0 under the wind temperature gradient button. But the button is highlighted so you know the crosswind is in there. Working our way through some of the other buttons on the environment page. Visual, of course, is turning your visuals on and off. Time of day buttons, dawn, day, dusk, or night. The next one over, wind shear computer complete disable. This comes in handy when that wind shear and op is illuminated. You're trying to give the crew a wind shear. Normally we fumble for the circuit breaker, but this is a little bit easier. You just hit that button, it disables the wind shear computer. Wait a few seconds and then deselect it. After you do that, about 5 seconds later, that wind shear and op will go away. Next button over, you can disable wind shear guidance. And then you've got your marshaller button. If he's not showing up, make sure that's highlighted. Also, you can deselect it and then reselect it. And sometimes that brings the marshaller back on. Next button over, ground traffic. Some of the sims have some aircraft built in. If you want to create more realism, have some aircraft taking off while they're taxiing out, you can do that in a couple of the sims. Next button over for airport lighting, that's where you turn off your PAPI and BASI for the visual approaches in the 300s. Just select 0 under PAPI BASI and that'll get rid of that. When you need to turn it back on, don't forget, go back in and enter a value in for PAPI and BASI. Coming back down, weather effects, you've got light and thunder, hail, falling snow is a good one to use for the 402 when they're going to be de-icing. Another option is light and thunder when you're doing wind shears, but that does bring on kind of a loud thunder sound, but you can put that on to try to create a little more realism. You got your rain, light, moderate, or heavy. The windshield wipers do work. If you give them rain, they can turn the windshield wipers on and it clears up the visuals. Working your way across, you've got wind shear, FA wind shear, and also Delta training wind shears are in there. Turbulence, you can select light, moderate, or heavy, or you can select a specific percentage. If you want to type in 40% turbulence, you can do that.
All right, working our way across. Next thing is bounce landing. We're using that in the current 643. Just press it to arm it, and the bottom kind of drops out at about 50 feet. Manual wind shear we don't use. Unusual attitudes. That's used for like a wake turbulence simulation where the wing drops or the nose pops up. Next one across, standard atmosphere. You just press that button, everything goes back to standard. 2992, the temperature, everything's standard day. Clouds and visibility, a couple interesting options here. You can see right now it's set for a base of 400 feet and the tops at 15,000. You can actually create two separate layers using the top line and the bottom line. So let's say we want to make it 400 base and 5,000 tops. And then we could do a 7,000 base and a 15,000 tops. And that way you have two separate layers. They'll break out for a little bit between 5 and 7,000. You can also choose the cloud type for that particular layer, whether it's scattered or broken. You can create some effects as they're coming down on the arrival with different layers, different scattered clouds. Makes it a little bit more realistic. Visibility we're all familiar with. You just type in what visibility you want, and that overrides the RVR. You can select RVR, and you enter in a number, say 1600 there, and then that becomes a priority over visibility. You can also see when you enter an RVR, it illuminates the ground fog button, so fog is in play. One thing I wanted to mention about fog, you just can't be nice. Let's say you've chosen one of your standard weathers, Cat 1, Cat 2, Cat 3. We'll choose Cat 2 here. And for some reason, your captain is not seeing the approach light, sitting too low, or whatever the case is. Maybe the sim's messing up. So you decide, I'm going to be nice. I'm going to go ahead and bump up the base a little bit to make sure that they break out. So you set it to 180 feet. The problem is now the base of the clouds is at 180, but the fog tops, and you're probably not going to remember to change that, the fog tops at 150. So now they're going to break out at 180 feet and then go back into the fog at 150. So that's really going to mess them up. If for some reason the sim is messing up and you need to go in and change that, make sure you match the cloud bases to the fog tops, and make sure you write up the sim because the preset button should work. Last thing I'm going to mention is runway state. This is where you can select your braking action, fair, poor, runway roughness, and then runway contamination, dry, wet, or if it's cold enough, you can put in snow or slush. Right now on the 402 landing in Memphis, we select the wet and poor. That's it for the environment page. Let me know if you have any questions or suggestions. And as always, thanks for watching.